The Prime Minister is in hiding today under a cloud over whether he's breached the ministerial code of conduct by allegedly asking for upgrades from Qantas for personal travel. An act that of itself would be a breach of the ministerial rules, but which is made worse by the fact that he was Transport Minister for some of these upgrades, responsible for the regulation of the airline industry. So there's a clear conflict of interest at play and clearly reasons for Qantas to want him on side. And more to the point, a clear, even unspoken pressure on Qantas to agree to any requests made to them. That's why this stinks. It stinks to high heaven. And the Prime Minister kept out of sight today, but not out of mind.
He's done a number of interviews this week and Sunday certainly, I think yesterday from memory, and so he's made himself available, as he often does, to answer these sorts of questions.
Well, he was asked the questions yesterday, sure, but he never answered them. He talked about trusts and other people getting more upgrades than him and TV shows taking free flights. But he never answered the key question about whether or not he had asked Qantas for upgrades. He didn't deny it, he didn't confirm it, he simply obfuscated, leaving his treasurer to wear the pain today.
If Anthony Albanese sort of accepted upgrades for private travel, he'd be in breach of his own ministerial code of conduct, and also if he was Transport Minister, in breach of the Rudd-Gillard ministerial code of conduct. Isn't that unethical conduct?
I don't believe so, I think the Prime Minister has gone out of his way multiple occasions this week to answer questions about this issue. I don't have anything to add to the answers that he has given.
Well, that's a problem right there. If Albanese did ask for upgrades as a minister, then Chalmers is plainly wrong, because that clearly would be a breach of the ministerial guidelines. The standards of ministerial ethics in operation when Albanese was Transport Minister has exactly the same wording as the current ministerial code. That is, ministers can accept gifts, but they must not seek or encourage gifts in their personal capacity. And yesterday, the Prime Minister's non-answer left this crucial question hanging.
Did you call Alan Joyce personally for these upgrades?
Look, the idea Qantas have a number in terms of bookings that are private bookings.
What is that number? Who answers it? Who has access to it? Other politicians are unaware of it. It's all very telling, isn't it? And there's another answer from yesterday that I want to replay to you today.
There's no accusation being made with any specifics at all about any of this. None. None. None.
But there is a specific allegation, and it comes directly from Joe Aston's book, The Chairman's Lounge, where he says, according to Qantas insiders, Albanese would liaise with Joyce directly about his personal travel, while other Qantas executives could authorise space-available upgrades in flight bookings, meaning an upgrade would occur only if there was an empty business or first-class seat after check-in had closed. Only Joyce could issue confirmed or guaranteed upgrades, the kind that Albanese was treated to. So there it is, a specific accusation. And the specific questions that Albanese needs to answer are these. Did Albanese, as Transport Minister, request Qantas upgrades or have his staff request upgrades for personal travel? Does the Prime Minister accept that this would be a breach of the standards of ministerial ethics in place at the time and the ministerial code in place now? And did the Prime Minister's cosy relationship with Qantas influence the government's decision last year to block additional landing slots for Qatar Airways? Peter Dutton put it this way.
When he was Transport Minister of our country, did he pick the phone up to the CEO of Qantas and ask for a free upgrade? That's the question that he refuses to answer. Now, he can tie himself in all sorts of knots, but the reality is that he needs to answer that fundamental question.
Fantastic. Thanks, mate. Thanks, really appreciate it.
The Prime Minister's strategy is obvious. First, he lashed out at the author, accusing him of hiding his past employment by Liberal ministers and Qantas, connections that are not only well known to everyone in politics and the media, but which are up front from page 1 of his book. Whoops. Then Albanese lashed out at other politicians, especially Peter Dutton, trying to smear him for accepting a free flight from Gina Rinehart to a celebration of her company's anniversary in the Pilbara. The Prime Minister must have forgotten that he's accepted a lift in a helicopter from another squillionaire, Lindsay Fox, to attend his Mornington Peninsula mansion for a barbecue. But the point is, as well as getting some of this stuff wrong, these are not rebuttals from Albanese. They're just desperate efforts to muddy the waters. Now he wants his colleagues to say that he's answered all the questions, and he's hoping that the pandemic report and the inflation numbers and the US election will distract everyone long enough for this issue to die down. But it's unlikely to. Parliament sits next week and there will be questions. He could be hauled before a parliamentary committee, and he could be referred to the new National Anti-Corruption Commission. This should be referred to the Anti-Corruption Commission. Which leads me to one other observation. Where are the Teals? Remember, they were all about integrity in politics. Shouldn't they be out there demanding answers? Shouldn't the Teal MPs be leading the charge to force the Prime Minister to come clean or have him referred to the Anti-Corruption Commission? Have you heard from Zali Steggall or Zoe Daniels or Monique Ryan? Anyone? Allegra Spender, at least, sent out a tweet criticising the cosy relationship between Albanese and former Qantas CEO Alan Joyce. She said it created a perception of conflict, and it certainly does. The semi-quasi-kinda Teal Senator David Pocock, well, he couldn't avoid a question on this topic, and he was as weak as water.
Would you personally consider sending off a referral to the NAC?
I won't be referring this. As I said, I think this is an important thing. There are questions to answer, but don't let this distract us from the bigger issue. We should actually have a broader discussion about reform when it comes to gifts, when it comes to lobbying.
Well, asking for gifts is already against the code. Doubly so when you're hitting up a company whose industry you regulate. If politicians like Pocock won't ensure the current code is enforced, then what's the point of our broader discussion about reform? And what's the point of the Teals if they get elected promising integrity, but then just sit back because the finger is pointed at their own green left side of politics? We haven't heard the last of this, not by a long shot. And the political pressure on Albanese will intensify as his own colleagues and the Teals and even the Greens start to realise that the Prime Minister's refusal to be accountable puts them all under the pump for riding shotgun alongside him.